Hello YouTube and welcome to Sci Prime Productions. I'm here to help enhance your tabletop gaming experience. If you're new to this channel, I primarily cover Paizo tabletop role-playing games like Pathfinder and Starfinder. So, NPC Core has been out for a while and I'm finally getting around to talking about it. Sorry it took me a hot sec, anyway, let's dive in. Oh, but before we get started, full disclosure, Paizo provided me with a review copy of the PDF for this book, no strings attached, and they aren't paying me in any other way. So first things first, what is NPC Core? Well, at its core, if you'll pardon the pun, it's a list of rules and statistics, so-called stat blocks for non-player characters, the eponymous NPCs. In other words, it's just a list of a bunch of guys you can throw into your game for your players to interact with. From gravediggers to grandmaster martial artists to plague doctors, all of that stuff. Now, Paizo has done something like this before. There was the NPC Codex for Pathfinder 1st Edition, and there were some NPC stat blocks for pre-remaster Pathfinder 2nd Edition in the Game Mastery Guide. However, there are far more NPCs in this book than there were in the Game Mastery Guide, and they are a lot more varied. They also encompass higher level NPCs. I think the highest level NPC in the Game Mastery Guide was like 8, and NPC Core has several NPC stat blocks that go into the double digits, including a stat block for a level 19 NPC. Don't worry, they also have low-level NPCs in here too. So the book is, broadly speaking, separated into 3 different sections. Firstly, there are the generic NPCs that are separated out by type, and we'll get to what that means in a second. The second section has NPCs separated out by Ancestry, and then there's a third section that includes Appendices, but also has options to quickly and easily modify NPCs. I'm going to go over each section in more detail and point out some standout bits, but before I do, I have 3 things to talk about regarding the book overall. Firstly is that sprinkled throughout the book there are new spells, magic items, and optional rules that can be used by anyone but are attached to various different NPCs. For example, in the criminals section, there are a few new spells that can, broadly speaking, be used by criminals to help illegal enterprises. Probably the funniest is 500 Toads, which creates, 500 toads in a 20-foot burst that sets off most traps in the area. The second is that there are a bunch of new troops in the book. Just so everyone knows, a troop is basically one monster that is, flavor-wise, composed of a group of NPCs. So if you want your players to fight an entire battalion of lower-level army personnel, like 30 of them, there's now a way to do that while keeping things balanced and engaging. It's a great way to represent your PCs fighting an entire thieves guild or in a big battlefield without things getting out of hand. Now, troops were a thing before the book, but there were only a few of them and now we have a lot more. Like, I think the book has more than doubled the number of troops in the entire game. So I'm super happy about that. There's also some new rules that help make troops a bit more manageable. They added a few things, took a few things out. All in all, I would say it's a pretty balanced change for the better. Lastly, some, not all, but some NPCs in this book have a thing where they count as a higher level if you're doing social stuff with them rather than combat stuff. Like, this envoy has really high social skills for her creature level of 0. Now, most of these skills don't matter in combat. I mean, it's not like she has the Bon Mot feat to make use of her high diplomacy. Thus, her combat side mostly doesn't interfere with her non-combat side. Even her high deception, which can be used to feint, isn't really a problem because she doesn't have sneak attack. She can use it to make one enemy off guard to one attack. Not really a huge threat. I like this change, and it means that you can have characters give the players a run for their money in social situations without also having to make them combat monsters. It's a cool little gimmick. Anyway, the first section of this book has a bunch of NPCs all organized by theme. So like artisan is a theme, and there are several different artistic NPCs in this book. Other sections include criminals, engineers, mavericks, who are basically cowboys, so on and so forth. So, all the stat blocks for the first section are listed as human, but that's not really an issue. If you want to say this courtesan is a dwarf, most of your players probably won't notice. Now, if you really can't abide by being that loosey-goosey, there is a section showing how to convert any of these NPCs to any other ancestry from player cores 1 and 2. I've decided to highlight my 3 favorite stat blocks from here. These aren't the best NPCs, just the ones that tickled my fancy the most. The Pilgrim of Aurori isn't really great combat-wise, but I like her for how she can help the party. If you talk with her, she gives everyone a +1 bonus to recall knowledge checks for 4 hours after you talk to her, so long as the recall knowledge check involves something that you talked about. a great way to keep a friendly NPC relevant even at higher levels. The Coven Aspirant is pretty cool. She can, as a single action, form a temporary coven with 2 other spellcasters. This coven only lasts a few rounds, but it gives all coven members the ability to cast a few spells once. Notably is Illusory Disguise, which lasts an hour, so she can form a bond with even higher level PCs and give them 2 uses of Illusory Disguise. Again, like Pilgrim of Aurora, a great way to keep a lower level PC relevant at higher levels. Please note that to join her coven, you just have to be able to cast a spell, so like a champion with Lay on Hands or a monk with Chi Rush counts, I think. But by far my favorite is the Gun Witch, this level 7 spellcaster with a musket. Interestingly, the stock of the musket also counts as a spellcaster's staff with a few magic spells in it. I love the idea of a sorcerer accidentally enchanting their childhood toy gun into becoming an actual gun and like feeding bullets into a solid block of wood and it works because shut up, it's magic. That's not exactly how it's described, but I'd allow it. By the way, there are stats for 2 different musket staffs here as well as a pistol wand, so your PC can have one. It would be great on a spellshot gunslinger, I think, and it says the GM is free to change up what spells are in each individual staff or wand. Okay, so the second section is dedicated to Ancestry NPCs. Each Ancestry from both Player Cores 1 and 2 gets a section with at least a few NPCs, and several have a troop related to them. Now, like the first section, you can change the ancestry of these NPCs to fit your needs, but each of these NPCs is designed to be thematically in line with one particular ancestry. Let's see if I can explain with an example. This is the Halfling Head Chef, very Gordon Ramsay vibes. She can yell at enemies or even her own allies, and she attacks with a frying pan. Remember, the frying pan is an ancestral halfling weapon. Yes, I'm serious, look it up, it has the halfling tag. Also, traditionally halflings have just always been associated with food.
We've had one, yes. What about second breakfast?
Don't think he knows about second breakfast, Pip.
What about 11sies? Luncheon, afternoon tea.
So yes, anyone could be a head chef, and if you wanted to take the stat block and give it, say, the hobgoblin treatment, that's entirely doable. However, it's very much, let's say, halfling coded, and the entire section is like that. Stat blocks that could be used for any ancestry, but are coded to be read for one particular ancestry or another. Anyway, here are a few of my favorite NPCs from the second section. First of all, I love the art on the Dwarven Spirit Priest. Be honest, you kind of forgot that there was an ethnicity of dwarves that had rainbow beards, didn't you? I know I forgot for a hot second. Love to see them back, and he's basically a dwarven mystic, like the Starfinder class, so that's cool to see. The Cornleshy Throng is just a walking cornfield, and I love it. They are a troop of Cornleshies. Really funny to think about a cornfield stalking and killing a band of first-level adventurers. Especially funny because they can force creatures to get lost in their corn maze, though Paizo did miss out on the chance to call it the Maze. And then there's the big boss goblin, who can, if targeted with an attack, yoink an adjacent goblin to use them as a living shield. Notice it doesn't say friendly goblin, so he could yoink a goblin player character to be his unwilling shield if the situation arises. He could even yoink a goblin fire to help defend against the fighter's own attack. Technically. Finally, like I said, there's an appendix that lists all the NPCs in order of their creature level, but there's also a few other things. The big thing is that there are replacement NPC spell lists. So if you wanted your NPC druid to have more lightning and storm-themed spells, you can replace their spell list with the Stormcaller spell list. Just find what spells the appropriate level of NPC should have and replace their spells with the relevant spells. Let's do another example. Let's take the Primalist character, the Dedicated Druid. Now, if we want them to be storm-themed, we can take their spells, they got 2 4th rank spells, as well as 3 3rd, 2nd, and 1st rank spells, and replace those spells with the same number and rank of the spells on the Stormcaller list. Now, I really like the idea of replacement spell lists. There have often been times I wanted like a specific fire-themed spellcaster or something, so having these options is great, but I wonder how much use they'll get in practice. To do it, you'd have to splice 2 stat blocks together, which is hard to do on the fly. I think it would really work in an online game using a program like Foundry, though. Just click a button and have the computer replace the spell list for you. That would be great. In addition to spell lists, there are rules for how to handle NPCs with things like familiars and animal companions, rules for organization, and some light rules for tracking how much a particular NPC likes or hates you. Those rules are a bit light and are kinda just there if a player wants to assign a number to how much their love interest likes them or how much their rival hates them. The specific in-universe consequences are up to the GM to decide. I get that the rules are a bit light, but it also prevents players from, gaming the system by trying to romance NPCs just to get some benefit on their character sheet. The last thing I want to talk about here at the end is that sprinkled in with all the new rules and weapons and stuff, there are a lot of new plot hooks as well. They aren't all gathered in one place, you will have to hunt them down, but they are there. Things like ideas for guilds and what kind of quests those guilds could generate. Like maybe a shipwright guild needs adventurers to find some fabled legendary shipwright tools. There's also a proposed bounty board in the criminal section, all that kind of stuff. It's not a lot, but it's nice that there are plot hooks here for GMs as well as NPCs to use in those plot hooks. Anyway, that's all I had to say about NPC Core. Remember, I do make my own third-party content like the holistic Ecclesiast cleric doctrine. Only $1 right now on DriveThruRPG. If you could check it out, that would really help me out. I don't make a lot of money in my day job. And let me know what you think in the comments below. And until next time, thank you, good luck, and happy gaming!